And Bryn, you have been diving into the suspect's background. What have you learned about him?
Yeah, Aaron, this was no career criminal, as we've been learning from law enforcement. There were no prior arrests of him. They really weren't he wasn't really on their radar. And for what we've learned is that Mangione really went to some of the best schools in this country, comes from a prominent family in Maryland. As far as those schools, we know he graduated in 2016 from Gilman High School, which is an all-boys school. He was valedictorian of his class, where he gave his speech at his graduation. Then he went on to University of Pennsylvania, where he also graduated with a bachelor's and master's degree, computer science, as well as mathematics. Extremely smart, told his newspaper there that he wanted to learn how to code because he wanted to make his own video games. Extremely smart individual. As far as the family is concerned, we know that his grandfather was a real estate mogul in that area in Maryland, and that his family owns a bunch of nursing homes. They also own a bunch of country clubs. So really interesting pieces making up the framework of who Luigi Mangione is. We also have found a Goodreads account where he talks about the Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski, and essentially says that he's a political revolutionary, and this is all being scrubbed right now as we speak. His social media accounts, as again, investigators are still trying to figure out a motive in this case. Aaron.
All right, Bryn, thank you very much. And out front now, RJ Martin, the owner of Surfbake H&L, Honolulu, a co-working and living space in Hawaii where Luigi Mangione lived around 2022. So, RJ, I mean, you and I are speaking here in a conversation that hours ago you never in your life would have thought you would be having. Were you shocked when you learned that your friend was the suspected killer?
Beyond shocked. It's unimaginable. You know, I was roommates with him, friends, hiked, went to yoga. He was, did his best to be athletic, and unfathomable knowing the kind, person that I saw and knew.
So when did you meet him?
Well, actually, we have an interview process because when you throw a bunch of people living together, you need to hopefully make sure they work well. And I interviewed him before he moved in. He works in tech. He has a remote position. He was looking forward to living in Hawaii and being healthy. He was excited about getting to know new people, experiencing new culture.
And did he, all right, so I know this was back in around 2022, so you're coming out of COVID. I'm curious, RJ, did you know where he was working remotely or why he had suddenly decided to decamp to Honolulu? Was there sort of any break in his life or anything that you ever became aware of?
No. It's very natural. Our members all have remote jobs, and Hawaii is one of those places that many people would love to live. So we provide kind of an all-inclusive living experience, so it makes it easy for them to move to the islands.
Okay, so I know you considered him, from your interactions with him, the time you spent together, as someone who would be a lifelong friend. What was he like when you knew him? And I know you've shared some pictures with us as well. I mean, in terms of how social he was and the sort of interactions that he would have had with the other people in your co-living community.
He was a very thoughtful person, communicated really well, was friendly, had good relationships with everyone. He was even, in some ways, a bit of a leader. He helped spearhead a book club that we started just so we could, keep those intellectual pursuits alive from back when we were in school.
So you mentioned that he was into health. How did that manifest himself? And you mentioned you went hiking together, things like that. Can you tell us more about that? Why he cared about health? And I understand also that at one point you did become aware of some issues with his back.
Yeah, so when I first interviewed him before he moved in, I remember he said he had a back issue and he was hoping to get stronger in Hawaii. So he's always focused on trying. When he first came, he went on a surf lesson with other members, and unfortunately, just a basic surf lesson, he was in bed for about a week. We had to get a different bed for him that was more firm, and I know it was really traumatic and difficult. When you're in your early 20s and you can't, do some basic things, it can be really, really difficult.
Did he have any conversations with you then or even afterwards about that issue? And I mean, his back, how he hurt it? I mean, obviously anything to do with the insurance process of it?
I don't, the only thing he ever mentioned, he mentioned, oh, I need to go back to see my doctor and then I'm going to have surgery. I encouraged him and brought him to yoga classes. He would do calisthenics on his own. I know he was really focused on being strong and healthy, but it also weighed on him that he knew that there was an impending surgery.
So did you, in the context of all the books that you were reading and the book club that he was leading, did you have conversations about any of the issues that, we now even see in the writings that he had on him when he was arrested? I mean, did he talk about, not even as maybe as specific as health insurance, but capitalism, anything of that nature?
I apologize. I haven't read any of the media that's happened. I heard about it when a reporter called me. So I'm not familiar with what his writings were, but I know we talked about social issues and we talked about how to improve the world. And we talked about, issues that are, say with capitalism or with the healthcare system or with housing or the food systems. It wasn't, anything specific. It wasn't like he had an axe to grind or he was even upset or angry about a particular issue. They were just natural intellectual conversations that you have when you're inquisitive.
So you stayed in touch with him. I know you spoke to him earlier this year, although I understand, RJ, that you tried to reach out to him multiple times even since then, but that he had not responded in those cases. Can you tell me about your last conversation with him?
Mostly just text messages. So I knew he was going to have a surgery. So earlier this year, I checked in with him. He confirmed that he had surgery and he sent me the x-rays. It looked heinous with just giant screws going into his spine. After that, he called me once. I didn't pick up. We kind of texted a little bit, but unfortunately, I feel terrible now. I wish, I would have made more of an effort to communicate with him.
Did you ever have any conversation with him where he brought up anything like guns or anything in that area?
Never once talked about guns, never once talked about violence. He was absolutely a not violent person, as far as I could tell. Yeah.
So RJ, in all of this, as you're just struggling to get your head around what happened here with someone, that you had considered would be a lifelong friend. And I know you've only had a few hours to even try to comprehend it. But just in these initial hours, do you have any idea why or how someone that you knew in the way you knew him could have done this?
Personally, I can make zero sense of it. There's never justification for violence. We live in a democratic system with processes and procedures to address, our issues. And I can make no sense of it.
Well, RJ, I appreciate your taking the time to share all this with us. I know you're in shock about what happened. So thank you for taking the time and trying to help everyone understand a little bit more here about this, what happened. Thanks.